What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovatar, back again for the last of the Rondo Blood commentaries. This one is special to me because this is the fastest I've cleared the game, although of course it is still, it's paltry by speedrun standards. But the reason why and I don't usually make note of how fast I finish a game. I'm not really thinking about speed necessarily. I think I've said in the past that I don't like to play too slowly if I can avoid it, but that finishing a game quickly is not really my primary objective, or even an objective that I give much consideration at all. But the reason why I pointed out for this is because something that I mentioned in previous Maria commentaries is that once you realize how completely Maria breaks the game, like once you realize how much easier she makes things, the fun in playing as Maria no longer even comes from trying to finish the game or trying to finish the game without dying like this, because the fact that she can double jump, the fact that she has air control, eliminates what would otherwise be sort of the wild card feature of a Castlevania game that could still kill you even if you were familiar with it, which is platforming. She kind of eliminates that factor of unpredictability. So finishing the game deathless is really not even super difficult. So once you've eliminated that as a potential source of challenge, the fun that comes from playing as her is in figuring out how extensively and how completely you can break the game with her. Basically, how badly can she demolish the entire game. And that might make it sound, when I say that, like this video is going to be me just steamrolling everything and getting like perfect, like no damage bosses. That's not really what happens. As much as I mention optimization, but this is really not a great run in context, which sort of says something in and of itself. Because there was a point in time when I was playing Castlevania games that like the idea of beating one of these games without dying, period, was like really cool and really impressive to me. And so now like here I am with Maria, and I've beat the game without dying, but I still feel like I have to add like caveats that this run is not very good. Um, and part of that just has to do with the relative unfamiliarity of some of the bosses, and because some of the bosses are just sort of very difficult in and of themselves. Like I'll be fighting the werewolf at the end of this level, and the werewolf fight actually goes pretty well, except for until the end. But I'll have to talk about that one when we get to it. And despite what I'm slightly curious to consider is that, first of all, let me explain what I mean when I talk about optimization. I'm talking about optimizing her movement and optimizing her movement in the regular levels, and then optimizing damage against bosses. Optimizing movement in regular levels basically just means like rolling as much as possible, which is something that I could be doing here more of if I had a firmer idea of this level's layout in my head. But one thing that's not very good about this bridge level here is the lack of any like significant landmarks. Like everything kind of like looks the same. But just generally speaking, I wasn't. This actually is pretty cool. Okay, never mind. I was gonna see if I went right past all the gargoyles, but I only managed to go past one of them. Yeah, he's like, and this is what I was talking about in a previous commentary, where these guys like are annoying to kill, but they are not necessarily a threat. Like you can pretty much ignore them if you get them to like keep dodging, and I think that maybe like when they dodge, it like resets some like attack timer and they don't do anything for a while. I think that's what's going on there. But yeah, when I talk about optimization, I'm talking about like rolling, which I could be doing more of here. And even though getting Deathless on Maria is not super difficult, that was still my only objective here, and that is why this is sort of less optimized than I'd like, and definitely not optimized for speed. Like a lot of these enemies that I'm taking time to kill, I'm just sort of doing because it's a video game and I want to kill things. If I really was trying to get through this as quickly as possible, I'd probably be ignoring a lot of these enemies and just jumping over them. But because I'm not, I'm not. But so the fact that it's like 25 minutes without super optimal like movement and with like killing a bunch of enemies that I don't have to, I guess I can be happy with that. But what I'm curious about really is whether or not the shorter time, because it's really only about I think 3 minutes faster than my other hybrid route clear. I wonder if the lower time is more to do with the route than necessarily the quality of my gameplay throughout it. Yeah, the werewolf boss, I said it went poorly, but it actually goes really well. I've sort of... This boss is very difficult to... look at that shit. Yeah, this boss is actually pretty hard. But it does have patterns that are learnable, and it's sort of a good example of when I talk about Rondo's difficulty. Like, this is the difficulty that I'm talking about. Is bosses like this, where, you know, it's funny. I have so many hearts. I don't know why I'm not using... I could be using the dragon's item crash here to just trash this fool. And yeah, that was so fast, I had barely had time to dodge. I think I was still mid-air when the dragon hit him and when he triggered his, like, death charge there. And the reason I got hit by that is because sometimes the werewolf will do that little last, like, death lunge, like, right when he dies. But sometimes, if you look at, like, previous footage, he'll, like, his health will hit 0, and then he, like, won't do it for a few seconds. So there, I think I wasn't expecting him to do it, like, immediately, so it still hit me, and I didn't get the no damage bonus. Not that that's particularly important, because this is a Deathless run and not a 1cc, but still, it would be nice to no damage more these bosses. Yeah, I'm looking now for places to somersault. I only really make a note of the time for this run because once I realized like how quick the other runs were, I was kind of trying to do this faster than I perhaps otherwise might. Although like I'm still like collecting a bunch of hearts that I don't need to. I'm killing enemies that I don't need to. I could probably just jump right over those turrets and they wouldn't hit me. But I am trying to. But I'm not like trying to go for a speed run. Fun as that actually might potentially be for Maria. She's very much like built. She has more tools that to make like the like a speed run or like more fun, where she has more tools to avoid enemies is what I'm laboriously trying to get out of my mouth. She can double jump over them. She can like roll past them, that kind of thing. And we're coming up here on a part that gave me a lot of trouble when I was playing as Richter, which is that part of this specific route that I'm taking, where I go alternate normal, is that I have to go from normal 3 to alternate 4. And the route to get from normal 3 to alternate 4, if you watched my other video where I take this route on Richter, is abnormally difficult, because you need a specific sub-weapon on Richter to activate like an elevator that takes you up to the alternate level 3 boss. Maria, that's fucking stupid. He like turns around and hits me. Reminds me of fucking Dracula in Castlevania 1. With Richter, you need a specific sub-weapon to activate an elevator that takes you to the alternate level 3 boss, but there's a unique enemy right before the elevator who's really fast and who can steal your sub-weapon. Now, I'm fairly sure that Maria also needs a sub-weapon to activate the elevator. I think if she double jumps up next to... because you have to knock a rock down. And I think if she double jumps up to the rock and like throws a bird at it, I don't think she can quite hit it. Maybe she can barely, but I think you do still need a sub-weapon in order to activate it. So the burglar is just as dangerous to her in that context as it would be to Richter. The difference is that Maria is much better equipped to kill the burglar quickly, because the burglar not only steals your sub-weapon, but also has an inordinate amount of health, where in my Richter video for this, I had to throw an axe at him and then item crash again to kill him. But here, boom. Dragon just erases him. And that's especially convenient because the dragon is also a really good sub-weapon for hitting that rock. So Maria gets through this area with much, much less difficulty than Richter, which is the theme of her character, of course. I think, I don't know, it's fun to go fast on Maria. It's like fun to roll around. I think that's why I was sort of thinking more about the timing in this run than I was in any of my previous ones. Another thing that would be worth considering if I really wanted to go back and like hyper optimize. Okay, yeah, now I'm using it. So I used the dragon item crash here, but it actually ends up kind of fucking me because I keep getting flashbanged by the dragon's like attack, and I can't see anything. Like, the reason I walked into that fire is because I like literally couldn't see because it kept on fucking flashing lights in my eyes. So I, again, don't get a no damage bonus, but again, it doesn't matter practically in the context of the run. It's just something that I think would be nice. But what's nice about that is that I finally make use of all these hearts that I'm hoarding. Because that's something that I talked about before in previous videos where I'm constantly walking around with like 80 hearts, and it's like I could be using these hearts to just fucking eradicate a boss if I wanted to. And I picked that one because for some reason that boss sometimes gives me trouble. I guess both of the level 3 bosses, both the Minotaur and the whatever the fuck that thing is, can be tricky. With that one, it's the way that things can go wrong is if it teleports into a position where it kind of corners you and you can't like get around it, or you can't like jump over it, and then it starts like shooting fire all over the place and the fire trips you up. It mostly depends on where it chooses to teleport to and whether or not it chooses to use the fire attack, because its fire attack is really the most threatening attack that it can do, and I think that comparatively speaking, its rock attack is not very difficult. It's not that difficult to dodge, neither is its laser attack. And I don't pick up the cat here the way that I did before, because the cat is good at killing frogs, but the birds are also perfectly good at killing the frogs, and if I miss a frog, I can just keep shooting birds and it just dies. The fact that Maria can fire 2 birds means that she's not as committed to any individual attack as Richter is. So with Richter, trying to whip those frogs, it's like if you whip the frog, but you fuck up and you miss, it's probably going to hit you. With Maria, not so much the case. You have a whole other projectile you could shoot, and the first projectile is going to come back anyway. And here's an example of what I mean when I talk about routing, making things fast, where I can just roll all the way past the Igor Gauntlet and past all the skeletons to get to the end of level 4. So that was like, how much time did I even spend in that level? Like a minute? Maybe like a minute and like 20 seconds? I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But that was super fast. But of course the level's not over until I kill the boss, and I don't have an item crash to eradicate him this time. I'm guessing my strategy here is probably going to be dump damage into him with birds when he's not looking at me, and then get distance on him, and then just throw dragons at him until he dies. That's what I'm guessing I'm going to do here. Yep. Look at that shit. He's just getting fucking melted. And look at that. She can actually like avoid that attack, which Richter basically like can't. Oh, fun fact here also: if you kill the Dullahan while he's throwing his head in the air, he won't do his like final strike where he shoots the blue balls everywhere. Instead, he just like actually dies without doing a final attack. Yeah, that attack that he does where he throws his head out and it's like green and it's coming towards you, I think the idea for that with Richter is that you're supposed to turn around and backflip over it, but Maria can backflip whenever she wants and in whatever context she wants. So she can just jump right over it. Something that's interesting about Maria is that, see, I actually died here a couple times doing this, and I don't know if it's because of Maria's. That's why I'm playing this part kind of oddly, because the last time I did this, my strategy was to jump down on that first of the 2 higher platforms, the first of the 2 skeletons, and then shoot 1 dragon to kill him and the guy behind him. But for some reason, I don't know if it has to do with the skeletons and the hitbox and like how high the dragon is hung, but for some reason the dragon looks like it goes right through them and then just doesn't kill them. But sometimes it like does. So that was very odd. And I did actually die there a couple times doing these attempts, because you get knocked back into the water. And I think that's probably the case whether you're playing as Richter or Maria. Another one of the very few balancing factors around Maria is the fact that she takes not just more damage, but more knockback than Richter. And I think that may be relevant there, although I'm not 100% sure. Richter probably gets knocked off there anyway, because the platform is so small. And so much of the space on the platform is being taken up by the dude himself. Yeah, I always love it whenever Maria fucking freaks out on the floor like that. I wish I had done it more on the bridge level, because on the bridge, you can probably just like jump over every enemy, and then like, you probably like jump over every enemy and like roll around at the speed of sound everywhere, and then when you get to the werewolf boss, you can probably just fucking drag an item crash, and that probably just fucking kills him. Because if there's any boss you'd want to like item crash spam to kill, it would definitely be the werewolf. He's difficult in a way that like the Dullahan was really hard. The Dullahan gave me more problems than any other boss that I encountered when I was first playing this game. But once I figured out the strategy of just start off behind him, then he immediately was no longer a threat. So it was like one tiny little adjustment solved the fight. Whereas with other bosses, like with the Minotaur, it was a boss that gave me trouble. But when looking back over the footage with the Minotaur, I could like see solutions to the problems that he was presenting to me. With the werewolf, it really does just come down to raw reaction time, because there doesn't seem to be any set pattern to his attacks that I could detect anyway. So it's not like something you can learn. And he just moves very, very quickly. So that one is sort of dangerous to the end in a way that a lot of other bosses are not. But the most dangerous boss, or one of the most dangerous bosses, is definitely Death. And it's one of the few spots where Maria can get in trouble, because I don't really want to dragon item crash and spend 50 hearts to... I mean, it's possible that might... Oh, I should explain what I'm doing here. So I'm like wiggling back and forth when he summons the scythes, because I'm basically trying to like juke them, because I think they aim like where they think you're about to be, and so I think that they take note of where you were facing. There, I didn't wiggle like hard enough, or maybe I like wiggled too far in one direction, and one of them actually did. Well, no, the problem was that after I wiggled, I like kept running in the direction that I was facing when the scythe took aim at me. So that's why I got hit there at the end. But otherwise, I think that's generally a pretty good strategy for fucking with the scythes. It seems to scramble their targeting mechanisms a little bit. And here's an example of what I'm talking about, where the dragon is too high in the air and it goes straight over Death's head. And the reason that I'm playing that phase so cautiously, as I think I mentioned before, is that if Death hits Maria in phase 2 with the scythe, she will go flying all the way off the edge of the arena and she will die. And there's nothing you can do about that. So doing what I did there, like keeping distance and throwing dragons on him, is more important for that particular boss than it is for any other in the entire game, even though it's generally a good strategy for the bosses, for all the bosses. In the bosses that you can get distance on anyway, like the Minotaur. That's probably what I should have done in my really bad Minotaur fight in the last video, was just like stay away from him and then just abuse the dragon. Because it's not like I'm short on hearts, you know? Especially there, because I had gotten 50 hearts from a tombstone, but now I'm talking about a different video in this video. The death fight is very, very interesting on Maria. The reason why, I should explain, the reason why you wouldn't necessarily want to use a dragon item crash for the death fight is because of the fact that the item crash for the dragon costs 50 hearts. I'm just going to talk about this while this is going on, because this part isn't very interesting. Because when Death takes damage, he'll get knocked around a little bit, and it's very easy if he keeps taking consecutive damage for him to get knocked off the screen, and therefore stop taking damage from the item crash as it's occurring. So with the dragon item crash, you could just hit him like twice before you've knocked him all the way off the screen, and then it's not going to do anything anymore. That's why the cheaper item crashes, that's why the Crucifix is perfect, because it's a cheap item crash that you can use multiple times, and because the item crash on the Grim Reaper fight is important as a defensive tool and an offensive tool. It's important because it destroys all the sights around you and lets you get out of a situation that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. With the dragon, you can only use that item crash once before you can only use it once, so you can only have one get out of jail free card, which means you need like an actual strategy to deal with the scythes. And there I fucked up. I was trying to roll, but I guess I didn't hit the jump button properly. That's why I ducked there and then just got hit by a bandage. I was trying to roll back over towards him, but I just didn't hit the button. And I think that's the right thing to do there on Maria, because she can catch back up to him super, super fast. I still can't tell if the dragon... I think the dragon actually did its damage there. I still can't quite tell if I'm like... Yeah, no, the dragon definitely did hit him, because there's no way that the birds did that much damage that quickly. Unless they did and I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I also am not sure if... I think I've talked before about like using the dragon item crash here, maybe? Obviously I can't do that now, because my heart supply is I don't have like the giant stockpile that I usually do going in here. I actually can't use the item crash now, I'm already out of hearts. And that was fucking stupid, because he summoned the fireball and the dragon went right the fuck through it. So that should have absolutely knocked those fireballs away. He fucked me out of having no damage bonus at the end. of boss rush. Not that it would have been a true no damage boss rush in the first place because the mummy hit me, but that's really annoying. And now I'm freaking out on the floor to celebrate the fact that I still won anyway. And I actually am not sure how smart it would necessarily be to use a dragon item crash on the shaft fight here because he like tends to jump around the screen, and he would probably just teleport off of the screen and therefore out of the range of the item crash if you started doing that. Although I don't know, I've actually never really tried it. Mostly it's less, because like the optimization that I was going for with this was less about proper utilization of the dragon's item crash and more just about proper utilization of the dragon itself, because the item crash is really only good against bosses because of how much damage it does and because of how expensive it is, and the fact that it's so expensive means that you can't do it too often, and you sort of have to weigh, you have to ask, like, is it really worth spending the equivalent of 5 dragon shots to do that much damage, of 10 dragon shots to do that much damage? Like, wouldn't 10 dragon shots just, like, do that much damage anyway, and wouldn't they do it, like, are you making efficient use of your hearts by using the dragon's item crash is sort of what I'm getting at. And I mean, I can't imagine that the item crash actually does the equivalent of 10 dragons in damage, because I feel like that would just kill anything because the dragon does so much damage. So it's more like it's not as efficient in terms of heart usage compared to damage. Like spending 50 hearts on a dragon item crash probably would not do as much damage as firing the dragon at something 10 times. But the trade-off is that you don't have to aim and you don't have to think. So it still might be worth doing in certain situations if you can't attack an enemy safely even with the dragon. Like the perfect example is the Minotaur fight in my last video, where I couldn't get back down on the same horizontal level as the Minotaur to attack him, so I just had to item crash from above. Here, it's the only usage of Maria's special super attack that I know of, and it's possible that super attack is doable against some bosses, but not all. It's definitely not doable against Dracula or against the Shaft rematch here at the end of level 7, because that's where I tried it first. So I kind of hope it's not doable against bosses, because based off of how much damage it seems to do to those armor guys, I feel like that's probably even crazier than the dragon in terms of the damage output. And Maria makes the game easy enough on its own. She doesn't need any more. She really doesn't need any more tools to make it any easier. Yeah, a lot of these boss fights in this run, I'm not super happy about. I kind of took damage where I felt like I shouldn't. I guess another example of good item crash usage is on the eyeball earlier. I think that was actually smart because the eyeball will teleport around, so and a lot of its attacks cover pretty much any position where you could fire a dragon at him. The only problem was that the dragon's item crash fucking flashbanged me, so I couldn't see what the fuck I was doing and I got hit anyway, which is not great. And you're going to see a good example of something actually in this footage. I'm not happy that I did it, but it's a good example of something that I've talked about, where I basically get I get desynced there, where the bats come out of the goblet and they're aiming at you in a certain way, and I think there what happened was I either went to the left too fast or not fast enough, because only one of the bats hit me. And when I talk about going back and forth on this fight, I'm talking about constantly moving and juking the bats, because the bats are kind of like death scythes, where they're gonna aim. Well, no, they're not, because they aim at you, I'm pretty sure. And you have to either be one step ahead of them, be moving back to the right as they're flying out to the left, or vice versa, or you have to outrun them, be going so far in the one direction that they're aiming towards that you go past them. There, I just sort of didn't go fast enough, I think. Yeah, this Dracula fight, I don't know. If I had to give one criticism, I'd say that it's this fight. It's a little bit non-eventful. I'm glad that it's consistently Damn, I take damage on this guy too? This is like fucking... This is fucking bad. Um, I like that it's consistently doable without taking any damage. Like that's what a good that's what you should be technically able to do on every boss. There are some iterations of the Dracula fight, like the one in Chronicles and the one in Castlevania 1, if you don't use the Holy Water stun lock, where it's very, very difficult to get through it without taking any damage. And then that does make it more tense, but it also makes it feel more like your skill and your execution doesn't matter, which is not really what I like to see in these games. Maria leaves sparkles behind when she jumps. That's funny. It's interesting how Dracula's appearance has changed over the years, because he goes from like a totally fucked up monster man in 1 to like a ghost in Simon's Quest, and then he becomes a blue man in Dracula's Curse. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna talk about this Dracula fight. I would contrast Rondo of Blood directly with Dracula's Curse in terms of the Dracula fight and in terms of the ending, where Dracula's Curse has a Dracula fight that's long and intense and feels very climactic because it's so long and because he has 3 different phases, but it's also a fight where you can consistently do it without taking any damage. Like, you don't want to go in there with 1 HP, but if I go into the Dracula fight and Dracula's Curse with 1 HP, I feel like I have a chance of survival if I play correctly, if I go in with the axe. But it still feels harrowing and it still feels difficult. Like, the way that I feel when I'm on like the end of a Dracula's Curse run and I get to Dracula is not the same way that I feel when I get to Rondo of Blood. The end of Rondo of Blood and I get to Dracula. When I'm at the end of Rondo of Blood and I get to Dracula, I guess I feel the way like Maria feels, where it's just like, I'm just gonna shit on this guy too. Like, this is not threatening to me. So that is a little bit, that is probably the biggest complaint that I have about Rondo, even though I still do think this is the best Castlevania game I've ever played. That is a complaint, and it really speaks to how quality the rest of the game is and how well it plays, that the fact that the final boss is anticlimactic is a complaint that I'm willing to overlook, because that's something that I consider to be pretty important. Like, the atmosphere going into Dracula is a very important facet of any Castlevania game, and this one does kind of drop the ball on that. But it makes up for it with stuff like these goofy-ass cutscenes. And maybe you can call me a weeb or a simpleton for being so amused and letting my opinion be so swayed by like the existence of Maria and the existence of like these goofy-ass cutscenes, but hey, I have my tastes, you know what I mean? I like what I like. And also the music and like the action and the controls, and like, it's just a really fun game to play. It's like more fun to actually sit down and play than any other game in the series, in my opinion. And we're talking about video games here, right? Like, what's more important than sitting down and playing it? You know what I mean? Not that I'm saying that video games need to be like roller coasters that like have no challenge and like you just, but it's not like this game isn't challenging. Like the werewolf boss is hard. The Shaft boss rush in level 6 is fucking hard. Death is fucking hard. Like, all this shit is difficult. All this shit was stuff that I had to learn. The only difference is that once I learned it, I like had it down, and I didn't have to worry about getting randomly insta-killed. You know what I mean? That's why I love this game. And it's very engaging, and the music is excellent, and I don't know, like, this game is just amazing. And I just wish it was easier for people to get their hands on it in the United States, because I kind of had to go through some obscure means to find a version of this game that I could play. Obviously, it was remade for PSP and Dracula X Chronicles, but I think that game has a different visual style, which I can't imagine could possibly be better than this. So, actually, maybe this game has been re-released on some fucking like PlayStation Online network or something. Maybe it is available somewhere. Wii Virtual Console. I don't know. So maybe it is easier to get if you like own a console or something, or if you're paying for some fucking like subscription service. I don't know. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that I think if you can get your hands on this game in any way possible, do it. This is not Dracula X. Dracula X is a different game. that's much worse. And I'm going to be talking about Dracula next. Keep your eyes out for that. Keep going on the journey of adventure.